Hello, I'm Emma-Louise Coffey and you're welcome to The Dairy Edge, the Teagasc Dairy podcast. We're bringing you the latest information, insights and opinion to improve dairy farm performance. On this week's episode of The Dairy Edge, milk quality expert David Gleeson explains the rise of chlorine-free on farms and the first steps farmers need to take to implement it. And I first asked David why chlorine has traditionally been the dominant product of use.
I suppose chlorine has been used traditionally in Ireland and internationally for as a cleaning agent. It's the most effective one, I suppose, on the market, especially in terms of removing protein deposits on stainless steel surfaces. And the levels of chlorine, I suppose, in most products can be between 2.5% and maybe 15%. So the issue, I suppose, is that, is the misuse of these chlorine products has led to a problem in terms of increased residues in milk. So, but chlorine traditionally has been, a very good disinfectant. So it's a challenge to find alternatives to it.
And you alluded here to a problem of increased residues, and I guess that's the thinking behind this moving towards chlorine-free in terms of cleaning products. Can you talk us through the decision to move to this?
Yeah, I suppose it's chlorine that can lead to two residues. First of all, in milk, one is trichloromethane, TCM, which we refer to it as, and that's very important in the manufacture of butter for the German market. And chlorides, which is important, which is the other residue, is very important in the manufacture of milk powder, and that's for infant milk formula. So it's critical, I suppose, that dairy processors can produce within residue specification for these high-end products. And so I suppose from an Irish point of view, we're big players in the world market now. We've got 15% of the world market in infant formula. We're the largest supplier of the Kerrygold brand of butter, lactic butter, into the German market. So it's critical that processors can keep within specification. And one of the new concerns now is that the residual levels have changed, and there's new targets set by UNOA for TCM levels in raw milk, and there's a proposed EU Commission target for chlorides for dairy products, which means it will be very difficult to produce these products where chlorine is part of the cleaning protocols. And that applies to both on farm and within processing plants. So UNOA have passed a resolution to remove all chlorine-based detergents by the end of 2020.
And that is both at farm level and processor level?
Yes. It has already started within processing level. I mean, that's been the first step that within processing plants that chlorine levels have to be reduced within processing plants, yes.
And just in terms of these residues, the TCM and the chlorides, as you mentioned, what is the problem when they're included in the product? I know you said there's a processability issue, but, is there a health issue with it?
Existingly, we're below the target levels, and it's more to do with marketing than anything else. We're competing with the Dutch and the Germans, for example, for the butter market, and they penalise their farmers fairly strongly if their residues are over a specification. So it's more to do with marketing and to keep, we have good products. We are within specification, but we've got to keep within to be able to compete. We've got to be up better than the rest.
And you've alluded to the why we're going chlorine-free. Talk us through the alternatives to chlorine in terms of cleaning products for milking equipment. Have we alternatives, and are they as effective as chlorine?
Yeah, I suppose that's where the challenge lies. I've been working with chemical companies now to develop, I suppose, alternative cleaning protocols, chlorine-free. So initially we've evaluated these on research farms, and they have been shown to be effective from both a residue and a microbiological point of view, if used as recommended. And this is where the challenge will be, is to get farmers to follow these new protocols. You cannot just change from one chlorine-based product and replace it with another chlorine-free product. There's recalibration, there's increased use of hot water. Increased concentration of caustic levels have to be used, and there's more use of acid-based products. In particular, I suppose I'm referring to the use of peracetic acid, which is a product that's used. It's an alternative to chlorine, and it's just as effective as chlorine. And it can be used, for example, for dipping clusters in between milkings and for sterilising a plant. It's a food-grade product and it evaporates, so it doesn't require further rinsing. But, it's again, you have safety issues with it. And it is an additional rinse. You can't just follow it after your detergent wash. So you must rinse out your detergent and follow with an additional rinse with peracetic acid. So that's one of the alternatives that's there. But we have 6 alternative cleaning protocols developed now. And the one that a farmer decides to choose, I suppose, depends on whether he's an automatic washer in place on the farm, whether he has milk meters or not, whether he's using traditional powder products. So the farmer has to decide which one will suit him. He obviously can't use them all, but one might suit him better than another. If he hasn't got, for example, hot water for morning and evening, well, then there's no point choosing the options that require hot water morning and evening.
And like looking at that, you mentioned an increase in the use of hot water, an increase in the use of caustic. Are these alternatives going to be more expensive at farm level?
Yes, I suppose in some instances, yes, there would be increased costs associated with moving to chlorine-free. When chlorine is removed, you must replace it with something, and hot water is one of those key parts of it. And that is one of the challenges because there isn't effective cleaning, hot water cleaning on many farms. But in most of the protocols that have developed, I've targeted hot water, for example, after the AM milking, as opposed to target nitrate electricity in hours to save costs again, because nitrate is roughly half the cost of day rate. So we've tried to target a lot of the routines to have hot water at the AM only. But the critical thing here is that when you remove chlorine, the cleaning protocols must completely change from those previously followed on farm. This is the key one here. It's a completely new protocols that have to be used.
And I guess with new protocols, a simple SOP in the parlour will guide people, in terms of making the right decisions on farms. At what level are we seeing non-chlorine and the chlorine-free movement on farms? Is it actually being adopted on farms at this point, or is it, next year? Yeah,
well, it has happened. It happened. One milk processor made a decision last year, and I suppose that has probably encouraged our to make the big decision of that all milk processors should follow suit. So one milk processor have as from last year, removed chlorine from both bulk tank and milking machines. And I suppose the target of 3 or 4 others at the moment is targeting the bulk tank only, because many farmers would have purchased their stocks for this year of detergent sterilizers. So they're targeting the bulk tank to get the bulk tank chlorine free, which is, a lot of the problem is associated with the bulk tank cleaning. So that's the target with the target of going to next year of getting the chlorine from the milk machine parts of it. So that's kind of the steps that different milk processors have made that decision themselves.
If we put ourselves in the shoes of the farmer, David, what are the first steps they should be taking right now to move their farm into a chlorine-free farm?
I suppose they firstly have to decide, on which of the cleaning protocols might suit them best. As I said before, it depends if you're using traditionally a powder product and you have a smaller plant with no automatic washer, then the old traditional powder systems can be adapted. So the critical thing here is that the product without chlorine, the viscosity of those products is much different than those products which contain chlorine. Therefore, I suppose the rate of suck-up by automatic washers may differ dramatically. And recalibration of those auto washers, once you have the new product for both the machine and the bulk tank, is vital. So a farmer can measure, he can calculate, first of all, what detergent levels are required. And that's based on the amount of water he has in his wash trough. I mean, this is where a lot of farmers get it wrong. You need to measure the water in your wash trough that you're using. We recommend 9 litres per unit. And the product recommendation, so you've got to keep that into consideration because different products recommend different levels. And then you measure the amount sucked up by filling a beaker or a lemonade bottle with detergent and use the automatic washer and see how much it takes. And then at that stage, resetting of the washer, in most instances, will require the help of your milk machine or your tank technician to reset the usage rate to make sure that you're using adequate detergent. So as I said, most of them are targeting the bulk tanks first. So you get over this problem and you find that the things go on fine and there's no problem. Then farmers are encouraged to go for the milking machine chlorine-free option.
I think it would be too laborious for us to run through the 6 alternatives, one by one, while we chat here today, yep. David. But I guess, you mentioned that, there are alternatives and we need to link in with people like our technician in order to calibrate our own systems individually. Each system isn't the same. But in terms of those 6 alternative options, where can people find more information on those?
Yeah, we have made them available to the milk processors. We have them on a Teagasc have milk quality webpage, and these alternatives are up on that, so that any farmer can print off the options. We distributed probably 3,000 or 4,000 of those options in a laminated format, which you could put up in a dairy with the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And they are available, and we will be printing more of them so that farmers could get them. I just have to avoid the issue. I don't want farmers having 5 options in front of them because they can't decide which one. So they would need the help of their milk quality advisor in particular, and their Teagasc advisor to guide them on which option would suit them best for their situation. So as I said, if you're traditionally using powder, then you should stick to a powder option with a slight change to it, which incorporates more hot water and probably more acids instead of traditionally using chlorine once a week or whatever. So the option, you should get help from your milk quality advisor or your Teagasc advisor on which is the best option for your farm.
That's great. Thank you, David. We'll include the link to the Teagasc website in the interview notes for anyone who's interested. And as you say, talking to the Teagasc advisor, the milk quality advisor, will help farmers along the way. Exactly.
And I suppose one thing that I just need to mention to you is that we did conducted trials evaluating these systems within the research farms. We are presently undertaking a study on commercial farms with the cooperation of 4 milk processors and of course the cooperation of the farmers, where we're measuring, monitoring from a microbiological point of view and a residue point of view, what's happening on commercial farms, because they may not always follow what we advise in terms of following strict recommendations. So it's important to see what happens in reality on farms. And some of these farms are chlorine-free for a year, some of them are just chlorine-free since January. So we are doing 3 test points during the year, one in May, which we've completed, and one in late August and one in October, looking at a range of from a micro point of view and from a residue point of view to see is there any implications of going chlorine-free completely on these farms.
And when do you expect to see results from that, David?
Well, we already have results from the May issue, which were very positive from a chlorine-free point of view. But I would reserve judgment finally until we're at the end of the year, because sometimes with wash routines, you need a couple of months of somebody doing something wrong before the implications of it are obvious. So that's why, and we have questionnaires completed in these farms, so we know what the farmers are doing correctly or incorrectly. So we'll be able to follow up then, if a system falls down or fails from one point or another, we can go back and see, look, okay, it's because of A, B, C or D.
We look forward to hearing the results, David. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to David Gleeson for joining me on this week's show. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify, and for more information go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm Emma-Louise Coffey, and join me next time for your Dairy Edge.